Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey. And you notice I've got a warm sweater on. I've actually had a warm sweater on the last few reviews. Yeah, it's winter here in Vancouver Island. And you know, we're kind of fortunate. We don't have snow down here on the coast. But we're right next to a ski hill, and they have record amounts of snow, so they can pretty much access, you know, a mile up, some pretty damn good skiing. Right now we've got pretty much Scottish weather down here. It's cool, and it's typical winter, wet and cool, very Scottish. Anyways, we put these on someday just to stay a little warmer. So today we are looking at, I always say one of my favorites, because this one here is actually a peated whiskey. And when I was in Oban, I looked across at an island, and just a short distance across there, well, it's actually to the town on that island where the ferry runs between Oban and Craignier, Isle of Mull, which is about, it's about an hour trip there. And to the north of the Isle of Mull, we have Tobermory. And this is a distillery that was actually started about 10 years after the town of Tobermory was created. It was created as a fishing community. And the distillery was started, I believe it was John Sinclair started it in 1797, 98. And it just had a start, stop, we'll say an interrupted history, but actually quite a long history of different ownerships and that. But I'm not going to get too much on the history because I put together a presentation, and you're welcome to watch it, or you can scroll ahead through the review to get to the review. And basically we'll focus more on what it is that I am going to be showing here, and that is going to be the LEDAIG 18-year-old. Now this is a whiskey that is part of their core range, and it is kind of hard to get, yet it is part of their core range. And it is a peated whiskey, and I haven't done too many peated whiskeys of late. This one here is certainly one that I've been chasing after, and I finally got a bottle. I am a real fan of the LEDAIG 10-year-old. Now that is Gaelic, L-E-D-A-I-G, but pronounced LEDAIG, or LEDAIG. And I listened to a lot of Gaelic pronunciations of it when I was in Scotland, and that was the original name of the community of Tobermory, and of course the original distillery. This is an 18-year-old. Not easy to get, but it is part of their core range. Here in Canada, certainly much harder to get, but I got it. Here it is. And again, while I was in Oban, it was an hour ferry trip across to Craignier on the Isle of Mull, and then it's, you know, 45 minutes by bus up to Tobermory on the north end. This here is, I think, somewhere in the 30 ppm area, 30 or maybe 30 plus ppm. I think right off the bat I'm going to have to show you the bottle and of course the label on it. So I think it's time to pour ourselves a glass and let's take a look at this stuff. Oh yeah. And let's give it the pour. You notice I'm not using my Trudeau glass. With peated whiskeys, Glencairn is plenty of glass for good nose. Let's bring on and take a look at it and see what we can find for legs, etc. we're going to let this sit 20, 25, I'm going to say 25 minutes. Let it breathe. And I have a presentation for you here. I put a little work into this presentation, but you're certainly welcome to scroll through and go right to the rest of the review. So I'm going to see you when we get back. The Isle of Mull is steeped deep in history, where there are 4,000-year-old remnants from its early inhabitants. The rock structures, standing stones, and burial cairns are still visible today. In 563 AD, St. Columba, an Irish missionary, arrived on Iona Island, a half-mile off the south coast of Mull. He founded a monastery and started evangelizing that region of Scotland. The Viking raids and then the clan wars meant that many castles were to be built by the powerful clan chiefs of the MacDougals, the MacDonalds, the Macleans, and the Campbells. These old castles are still visible ruins, and some are still standing today. Then there is the darker history of Mull, the clearances, where the powerful landowners booted the tenant families off the land and replaced them with sheep. The colourful and picturesque town of Tobermory was founded as a fishing port in 1788 by the British Fisheries Society. 10 years later, in 1798, John Sinclair, a soda ash merchant, started LeChec Distillery. It wasn't until 1823 that he took out a legal license. Records show that in 1821 it produced 6,700 gallons of spirit, but by 1837 it had ceased operation and was up for sale. After sitting idle for 40 years, Dr. Neil Campbell bought and rebuilt the distillery in 1876. He sold the distillery to his whiskey agents, John and Alexander McKell, but they were bankrupt by 1887. In 1888, it was acquired by John Hopkins and Company, who ran it for 28 years. It was sold in 1916 to Distillers Company, who today is Diageo. They ran it until 1930 and then mothballed it for another 40 years. In 1972, the newly formed LeChec Tobermory Distillery Company got it running again, but they too were bankrupt by 1975. In 1978, Kirk Leavington Property Company owned the distillery and made a bad decision. They sold the warehouses as flats. In 1991, the old established company Burn Stewart Distillers now own the distillery. Even though Burn Stewart has gone through a couple of changes in ownership, it appears that Tobermory finally has some stability and a future. The Tobermory Visitor Centre does both tastings and tours 7 days a week. There are 4 whiskies in the Tobermory LeChec core range, as well as some new special releases to try before purchasing. The unpeated Tobermory whiskies and the peated LeChec range are not the only spirits produced at the distillery. In 2019, Tobermory started to distill a gin that has a splash of whiskey new make added before the maceration. The newly refurbished distillery has a new stainless steel mash tun that holds 9.5 tons of barley grist. The first 2 mash cycles go to the washbacks, and the third is recycled into the next mash. The 4 new 50,000-litre Oregon Pine washbacks are filled to 33,000 litres where the yeast is added, and they will ferment from 60 to 100 hours. The hanging soap cups prevent the wash from foaming over the top. The 2 outside wash stills are charged to 16,500 litres, and the 2 inside spirit stills are unique in having a larger charge of 16,700 litres. This is due to a longer distillation time for more copper contact. The new make spirit is around 68% ABV, and the filling strength is around 63.5% ABV. Due to the lack of warehouse space, the bulk of the Tobermory and LeChec casks are matured in the Deanston warehouses. Tobermory is 130 miles or 4 hours or longer by car from Glasgow, depending on the ferry schedule between Oban and Craignier on the Isle of Mull. The distillery is 32 miles or 2 hours from Oban using the MV Isle of Mull ferry. Well, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and if you didn't, you just scrolled ahead to get into the review. Well, by golly, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get right into it. We're going to go right for the nose. And LeChec, 18-year-old, the nose. Oh yes, a little different nose here than what you would get, let's say, in an Ardbeg, one of the Isla whiskey. Just a wee bit different. I'm getting a little more smoke in the background there, and almost like something cooking on a beach fire, like maybe some kippers. I've got and maybe even some s'mores. I am getting some sherry influence here, I think, and even marmalade, apricots. But I am getting something minty. Maybe pine needles here. Yeah, definitely pine needles. And you know, slight bit of creosote in the background. I'm getting also some spicy stuff here. The cinnamon's coming through. I would say cinnamon and a wee bit of ginger. Peppery. But what I like about it, that the smoke is really balanced out. It's background smoke, which is quite interesting. Let's get into the palate. Salangeva. Spicy, licorice. Slight bit of rubber going on here. My Haley Hansen rubber boots I used fishing. Got some sherry notes there. Getting the berries. A little bit of chocolate going on right now. I've got the smoke dancing with the sherry notes, but the smoke isn't overpowering. It's like a very balanced. It's more of a background peat. Cloves, malty, slight bit of the wood maybe trying to creep through. But again, what's impressing me here is that the peat is not taking over. Marmalade. Here comes that marmalade that I got on the nose. There's something minty going on here. Definitely the chocolate and now some tobacco notes. Cinnamon still there. Boy, it's really bouncing back and forth between the stronger sherry notes and I'd say malt, and then of course that smoke in the background. Very interesting, coating my mouth. Let's go for the development and the finish. Salangeva. This is going to have a medium to long finish because when I went for the development and the finish, I still had a coating on my mouth, so a lot of times we'll lose that. The peat is also medicinal. I didn't mention the iodine, kelpie. We're back to kippers on the fire, on the beach fire. Still got a little bit of that rubbery stuff going on. Still some strong chocolate stuff, the darker chocolates going on here, and the licorice, and the mint, and a coating on my mouth. Impressive, very impressive whiskey. I think I am going to add some water. So let's give it the swirl. We only added 3 or 4 drops there. I didn't add a lot of water there. We'll see what happens with that. Just see if we can open it up a little bit more. But so far this whiskey is killing it. With water, the nose. Oh, big hit again of the sherry notes here. I'm getting the berries. And I'm getting a little bit of, again, something between berries and maybe some apricot going on here. And a little bit of the medicinal stuff in the background. A lot, very briny. I got the beach fire. And I'm on the coast. I have My nose is picking up the coast, the coastal smells on the beach there. Let's get into the palate with water. Solanjaba. Well, we didn't add too much water, and the peat is still there in the background, but I would say in the forefront we're getting a little more of the chocolate notes. Something else I was going to mention, there's a bit of a leathery note there in the nose there, and I'm tasting kind of a rich, quite a rich sherry taste to this, even with the peat in it there. Even with water, it's dried out a little bit there. A wee bit of the wood, I'm not getting astringency, no astringency at all, but a wee bit of the wood is noticeable. The malty notes are still there, bit of graham, and slight bit of cardboard going on here. Overall, the water didn't hurt it. I'm going to say that I would stay with, I put 3-4 drops in. I would stay with just a little bit of water. That seems to work. What I'm really noticing about this whiskey is the balance to it. There's so much balance. I mean, the peat does not dominate. The peat is there. You get that smoke in the background, and like I say, the best description is it's dancing around with those sherry notes, with the malt notes. You're getting. I did mention a little bit of the orange, the blood orange. Coming through, there's some fruity stuff mixed in with umami, and of course that brininess. Very impressive. This is actually a very good value, and I'm really looking at 88, 89 for this whiskey. It's a strong player in that score range because it's even in Canada. This is like the $200 or less range in Canada. And I just feel that, I've got a lot of whiskeys that were well over $200 that will not match this whiskey in terms of what it's delivering. This is a class whiskey, so I'm really highly recommending this. If you've got the opportunity to purchase it, all I can say is, this is my opinion, don't think twice, grab it if you can get it around that $200 range here in Canada. It's certainly less over there in Scotland, in the UK and Europe. I'm going to have to check the price in the States and all that, but I think it's probably, comparable with the exchange and the dollar and that. But having said that, good whiskey, decent score I'm going to give it. And I am going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive until the next time. So long.